Jesus was the cousin of John. It's another thing that's interesting. They knew each other growing up, but John at no point suspected, my cousin's a little bit unusual. I wonder if he's the Messiah. He literally needed God to show him who was the Messiah. And you can imagine his surprise when it's like, my cousin? And then he thinks, come to think of it, he was different. So he sees the heavens open. That's how John knew who it was. He literally sees the heavens open. So John is a visionary prophet. You don't see him doing the demonstrations of miracles like Elijah, but he's said to be greater than Elijah, coming in the spirit and power of Elijah. But his was all revelatory gifting. It wasn't, he wasn't calling fire down from heaven. He wasn't multiplying, raven food or something like that. But immediately he saw the heavens open, the Spirit like a dove descending upon Jesus, and a voice came out of heavens, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And of course, you probably heard many sermons about this. Jesus is well pleasing to the Father and hasn't done any acts yet because he's well pleasing. Because even before he goes into ministry, he was pleasing the Father because the way he thought and the way he walked and the way he talked and the way he felt was all in perfect alignment with the Father. So he was one with the Father, and he never deviated from that affectionate circle of the Father's will in all of his life. But I want you to see the word in verse 10. Immediately he came up out of the water and saw. The word immediately, I'm pointing out, because for some reason Mark uses this immediately. There's a lot of in this short gospel, drive. There's a sense of sequential urgency and importance in everything he's doing, in everything Jesus does. And so you see that immediately he comes out of the water. And then verse 12, immediately the Spirit impelled him to go into the wilderness. So the Holy Spirit now joined up with Jesus, with the voice of the Father, the Trinity operating now in convergence together for the ministry of Jesus. The first thing the Spirit does is compels Jesus to get away from everybody, to go into the wilderness. And he's in the wilderness for 40 days to be tempted by Satan. And he's with wild beasts. And the angels were ministering to him. It's a kind of an interesting, compressed story there. In other words, while Jesus is wandering around, you could say, getting leaner from the fasting, he's been driven into a place of isolation to overcome the tempter. I want you to think about, because everything that happens with Jesus has a parallel in some way to the journey of a believer, because Jesus was not doing this as God. He was doing this as man, obedient to the Father. He was the second Adam. And so he could not employ any of his divine attributes, any of his secret strength, any of his advantages as a part of the Godhead. He had to become a substitute of such credibility that he could live life as a man, a prophet, obeying the Father, doing only what the Father wanted him to do, so that when he died as a perfect man, so that his performance could be credited to the account of any imperfect man, because the mathematics of it is the perfect man dies, having never sinned. Therefore, in the arithmetic of God, it's accounted to you. Hey there, you just listened to an excerpt. That's a little bit of the podcast. So if you want to get the whole thing, because there's a lot more content there, go to lancewallnau.com/podcast. And instead of getting an excerpt, you get the entire message.